Hey guys, Joe here, and if you follow the firearms market, you'll know that in the micro compact line, there aren't a whole lot of high capacity pistols, although there are way more than there were even a year ago. The leader, king, OG, whatever you want to call it, has been up till now the SIG P365. Now this one happens to be finished in the new stainless or dark gray finish, but it's fundamentally exactly the same pistol that debuted about a year and a half ago and is an amazing pistol. Springfield has decided to throw their hat into the ring. I almost said their ring into the hat. That would have been a pretty cool thing to do, by coming out with the Springfield Armory Hellcat. And today we're going to take a look at both of these pistols, see how they stack up, and see which one you should be spending your hard-earned Benjis on. If you're new to the channel, thank you for coming. Maybe consider getting subscribed down below. You can check out all the videos on the channel. I think I did a quick overview of the 365 before, but we'll do another one today. The SIG comes in a hard plastic case. It is not airline approved, but it is lockable, so you can put the gun in your safe and have it double locked. Inside the box, you get a second magazine, a manual, and a bunch of foam stuff, as well as some stuff underneath there, including a cleaning rod. The Springfield comes in a plain box, which is perfectly fine. As I've said on this channel almost every time I've seen one of these, I'd rather see them spend more money on the firearm than the box. Instead, they give you a soft bag, which you can use to store the gun when it's not in use, as well as stick it in a gun bag for going to a range. Underneath this aptly named accessories part, you have a second magazine, and these are a polished chrome steel kind of looking thing, as well as your gun instructions, a trigger lock, and your owner's manual information. Very typical. We're not really interested in the boxes today though. Defend your legacy though. No, today we are going to take a look at two firearms. The SIG Sauer P365 is the first one. It's been out longer, and as you can see, it's a gun that pretty much turned the micro concealed carry on its head. Up until this point, there were very few guns that had a high capacity with a smaller size, and most importantly, a smaller print. What that means is if you're carrying in a holster, appendix, on your hip, whatever the case may be, this is what shows. None of this matters. I can carry a 16-inch revolver down my pants, and in fact I have, and you wouldn't see it because it has a very small grip on it. So this is the most important thing, and SIG Sauer managed to get 10 rounds into a very small double stack mag. The Glock 26 was the closest thing to it, however it was much wider, much thicker, and had a longer grip frame. The Sky CPX is a 10+1, however it's not a direct competitor to a Glock or any sort of premium firearm, in that it is designed to be kind of like the new Saturday Night Special. It's a 10+1 hammer fired double action only pistol that is just kind of blurg. You know, I don't care for it myself, and I don't know anybody that does, especially since options have come out. The next firearm is the Springfield Hellcat 11+1. Anything you can do, I can do one better. That's what they were thinking when they came into this. They wanted to be able to say that they could do 11 rounds in a magazine that's about the same size. And how Springfield Armory managed to do that was by having a double stack mag that was wide all the way up versus the SIG Sauer magazine, which you can see bottlenecks up at the top. So by having it wider, they're able to get that extra round in there. Fundamentally, both of these guns, and I'll continue to safety check them, are pretty much the same. They're both striker fired, single action only, micro carries with similar styling, similar capacities, similar dimensions. They both have 3-inch barrels. Now, one place they differ is the sights. The SIG, for its price tag, has night sights with a green tritium front, and, or not a green tritium, but a green dot in the tritium, so it's very easy to pick up along with night sight. So you can see that picture is really easy to pick up. The Springfield, and this is the standard version, it is not the OSP or optical supporting pistol, has a tritium front dot with the yellow surround and a U notch in the back that has a white line around it. Still very easy to pick up, not what I would prefer, although it does pick it up very well. The feel of the guns, they're both polymer. However, in my opinion, and this is a light opinion, the plastics or the polymer feels a little bit nicer on the Sig Sauer than it does on the Springfield. The Springfield is a little bit bulkier. You can kind of see how there's an edge here from the slide. I think they went with a slightly inferior polymer, which meant it had to be a little bit thicker. On the side, this has much more of a Glock style extractor. This gun has a full length or normal size extractor. Let's talk about the front rails on the guns. The front rails are quite different. The Springfield has a 1913 Picatinny style rail. However, it is one slot because of how small it is, but you can get a small Olight or a TR4 laser on there. The Sig has a Sig accessory rail, kind of like how Glock likes to keep theirs separate. So does Sig. So you would need to get a Sig specific laser or light, or a TR3 from Arma Laser, or TR4 I believe, and that will fit on there as well. However, it goes over the trigger guard and then clips up there. Since I mentioned trigger guard, let's actually talk about the triggers. They're both single action like I said. However, the SIG 365 is a little bit different in the fact that it doesn't have a trigger safety. It also does not have a manual safety unless you buy one with it. So you will have to keep that in mind if you're going to buy this pistol. There are no external safeties on this firearm. So yeah, you pull the trigger too much, it's going bang regardless of what you're doing. This one is the standard 365, so it has the standard Sig Sauer trigger. The 365 XL, which is a slightly longer pistol designed to compete with the Glock 48, does have an Omega flat face trigger that feels a little bit tighter than this one, but this one is actually lighter in pull than the Springfield, but it feels like it takes a more deliberate pull to activate it. So you come back, you have a wall, and you just pull. It feels like it's kind of like sticking just a little bit before it actually drops the striker, but it doesn't feel gritty. It doesn't feel like it's loose. It just wall, and then right there. You hear that when I pull the trigger? Here's the reset. It's pretty short, and you can hear it as well as feel it, and then you just go right into your next shot. If you pull it with a nice crisp pull, you don't feel any of the staginess. It just goes, and you're good to go. Being single action, no double strike capability, so if it doesn't fire, you are going to be clearing the pistol. Same thing goes for the Springfield. However, if you look at the Springfield, you'll see that it does have a trigger safety. So if you try to pull it from the side, or if you're putting it into your appendix carry and you accidentally snag it on your shirt, unless this gets depressed, you do not have to worry about it setting the firearm off. However, it's a very light trigger safety, so if you get enough clothing or something caught in there, it could go bang. The trigger on this one is pull back, stop, and go. I think the actual trigger pull to activate the striker release is a little bit stiffer than on the Sig Sauer, but again, that could be on purpose to make sure that you're actually committing to the shot versus just goofing around. So again, wall, shoot. The reset is just about where the wall normally is, so bing, you can feel it and hear it, which again, I like, and then you just go into your next shot. It feels a little bit more plasticky, if that makes sense. This has a aluminum trigger, this has a plastic trigger, and honestly, it kind of feels like it. But again, emergency pull, you go to fire it, just pull it, feels good. So next, let's take a look at the externals to see what Springfield did. They added a couple of features that are not present on the Sig Sauer. Number one, their stippling comes up farther and actually goes into their memory notches, as it's commonly referred to, up here to remind you where to put your thumb, as well as up here on the frame to give you a point of rest for your finger. This is kind of important if you're a new shooter. If you have a gun like the SIG 365, which doesn't have anything on the frame here to remind you to rest your finger, get a piece of skate tape and put it on the frame so that you will know that when you're done shooting, you don't leave your finger in the trigger guard, you just take your finger out and you put it on the side of the firearm. If you've watched some of my at the range videos, you'll see many times where I go to sneeze, or if I'm trying to check the shot, the first thing you'll see me do is pull my finger out and rest it on the side of the frame. It's because I practice when I dry fire. I only put my finger in the trigger guard when it's time to shoot. So it's nice to have that feature. This does have a thumb recess. It's not as large as the Springfield, again because the frame is narrower, but a little stippling in there wouldn't have hurt. It does have a little bit of nice front strap and back strap stippling on it and 2 finger grooves. The Springfield also has 2 finger grooves and is stippled all the way around as well. As I said before, this is not the optic ready version. However, it looks the same on the top minus the 2 holes for where the optic would be screwing into. It has rear slide serrations that go all the way over the pistol. Other people have said that it could help you when you're racking. However, when I rack, I do not grab the top of the slide. I grab the sides of it. I guess if you have smaller hands or if you want to do it that way, you could do it that way. The front slide serrations are enough to grab onto. Nothing special to write home about. The front of the sights, both on the Sig Sauer and the Springfield, are flat front, which means you can actually rack it on a piece of clothing. Can't do it right now because obviously I'm looking at a desk. Overall, I think the design is okay. It looks a little bit weird. I think the spacing is a little bit off. However, if they hadn't done the double lines, it would have looked like a mini Beretta APX, and I think that's what they were avoiding, so don't want to look too much like it. The Springfield has a witness hole for a round, not a loaded chamber indicator because nothing pops up, but at least it's there. The Sig Sauer has a square version of it, which is a little bit smaller. One thing I've noticed on some pistols, it's not as prevalent when you have a black barrel like these have, but on some pistols you will have trouble finding the round if you're carrying a self-defense round, which typically is a polished nickel casing, or at least it is on Sig Sauer ammunition, double tap ammunition, and my favorite right now, which is the Sig 365 for short barrels. As the Springfield is the new kid on the block, we're going to go ahead and take this one down first. First thing you do is you safety check. I've been doing it a few times during the video, but still you can never check too much. It's like OCD, but in a good way. All you do is you lock it back, and almost in the Sig vein, you are going to rotate this latch. However, unlike Sig, you're not coming down, you're actually going up. It could be a little bit stiff if the firearm has never come apart before. Drop your slide, and yes, you will have to pull your trigger, but once you do that, you can release the slide from the frame. Sig Sauer 365, you just come all the way back, lock it just like the previous one, and you bring your locky docky down. Ow. Very stiff, and I have a broken fingernail, so I apologize. That was me, not the gun. This one being brand new, this little nub is a little bit more difficult to line up. If you look inside here, you'll see that little piece that's rotating has to be perfectly flat, so just know that it's just about vertically down. This one going up does the same thing, but it locks into a more straight position. Let's take a look at the frames. They look very similar. There are a few differences. The way the spring is set for the rear of the fire control group versus the front on the Sig Sauer. It is a wider internals on the frame of the Springfield, which we already knew, as well as the fact that for the barrel on the Springfield, there is some ramping in the frame. That is kind of cool to see because it means it will more easily feed weird-shaped ammunition if it's not just trying to jam into a barrel. The rails look to be very nice. However, the difference here is the fact that the Sig Sauer, with a removable fire control group, you do have to knock out the pins, has rails that run all the way, and the Springfield has split rails more like a Glock. Does have the double nested spring, which is the pretty much standard these days, and you take it out just like you would a normal striker fired pistol. Barrel comes out in the standard way as well. Looking at the 365, exactly the same, and the barrel comes out exactly the same. Looking at the two, they use an extremely similar design, which is the typical Browning breech lock tilting action. That means it locks here on the front of the slide, or on the front of the chamber against the slide, versus having lugs. But yeah, they're pretty much the same. And again, I'm not saying it's going to make one more reliable than the other, but it's definitely going to help, is the fact you see how much softer the radius is and how much wider the ramp is on the Springfield versus the SIG. The SIG is going to possibly be a little bit more picky when it comes to ammunition choices. However, I fired one that had all kinds of different ammo in it and it fired fine. The Springfield should fire just about anything you put in it. So let's go ahead and reassemble the Sig Sauer first. You just go ahead and pop your barrel in it. You drop it down. You take your spring for the Sig Sauer. Be careful, don't mix them up. It should be pretty obvious, and I could tell from the difference. Much wider base on the bottom of the Springfield. But you line your spring up so that it drops down so that the slide is vertical. Grab your frame, make sure nothing is popped up for the firing pin safety. Start your slide back on. Come on, come on, come on, Cletus. Now when you get to this point, because of the way this is sitting on here, you may have to kind of zhush it around a little bit until you get it right there. Sorry about that, I had to go off camera real quick. And then you just pull it back, and it should actually lock into place on its own. I brought it all the way back just in case it didn't. So you just go ahead and drop it back down and ensure functionality. Springfield goes back together exactly the same. Spring, barrel, slide, dip, dip, dip. Sorry, it does make it a little bit more difficult to do it on camera because I'm trying to look from the side of the camera. I don't sit behind it or above it because I'm too fat. When you bring this gun back, you saw it going on really easy because of the way it lines up. Go ahead and drop your slide and pull your tab back down. Just like the Sig Sauer, go ahead and put your mag in it, test your functionality. You're good to go. So, the question that's on your mind at this point should be, which one do I prefer? That's you, not me. I have no idea because I haven't shot them back to back yet. The Springfield feels pretty nice in my hand, especially with its little pinky extension. But as long as it's got its normal mag in there, the SIG feels pretty good. The SIG feels slightly thinner, even though it technically might not even be. It's just a deception because of the way the slide slides onto the frame in a flush fit versus a overhang fit. In terms of the trigger, I do prefer the way the Springfield feels right now. However, again, if you put the Omega trigger in the 365, it would make it feel really good too. Sights, I prefer the Sig Sauer sights. I think this rear sight should have been a night sight just like the front, just like it is on the 365. In terms of controls, my hands fall pretty much identically on both pistols because of their size. I do like the go pedal, or the memory spot as it's called, on the Springfield. I like that the thumb area is also stippled. That just is a personal preference. Now the big advantage that the Springfield has over the SIG is the fact that you can put a red dot on this one. The only way you can do that with the 365 is if you go with the 365 XL. However, this costs as much as a 365 XL. This costs at minimum about $40 less. Depending on which way you go, this could cost significantly more than this one, especially if you start doing things like changing your rear sights. Just changing a set of sights could add $50 to $75 to the price of the gun. From the few videos I've seen, the Springfield and the Sig Sauer both still have striker drag. It's something you deal with when you have such a short recoil system, such a short slide, barrel, and recoil on the strikers. You're going to have some primer drag. The most important thing is whether or not the firing pins stay together. And so far, since the repairs and recalls the Sig Sauer has, the few videos I've seen on the Springfield suggest that it seems to be in pretty good nick too. So it's kind of a toss-up. In that price range, what would you guys go with? I'm interested to hear what you think. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Consider getting subscribed. Maybe use some of my Amazon affiliate links. I'll list some of the gun cleaner I use. I did the video where I showed how nasty this particular one is, but as you can see, I've cleaned it and reassembled it, and now it looks like a gun that could be worth $1,000 if you were insane and wanted to spend $1,000 on a stock Springfield stainless 1911 with a scope that's been drilled into it. Anywho, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to do the quick follow-up video to this, and then I'm going to bed because it's almost midnight. So, as always, I'll talk to you later.